I got this radio, say, in the 1999-2000s, and it was a very small and, in my opinion, interesting radio. Because of its size, it's very, very small here. In fact, it's a, say, more or less classic FM radio for the 88 megahertz band up to approximately 108 megahertz. And the brand was a Reinhardt. Well, I'm more or less sure that it was made in China anyway. I found it an interesting radio, but like all these radios, the plastics get deteriorated and you can throw it away. Often, many soldering connections are made with solder without lead. And due to the regulations of the European Union, anyway, this was also, as far as I can see, a radio that was made with that type of solder without lead, and you can see that always when you look at the soldering connections and they are dull. When they are dull, when they are not shiny, you can be sure more or less that it is solder without lead. Anyway, like I told, the plastic deteriorates. Here is the backside of that radio. Also a big problem is always that the battery holders are corroding. That means that you must shake that radio to get it working, say to make a kind of contact, and because they work on 3 volts, that is extra critical, because such a low voltage, on such a low voltage, even the tiniest contact resistance will have the effect that no current can be flow into the radio. You can clean them, you can scrape them off. Often when you scrape them off, you get to, say, the kind of bare metal of which these contacts were made, and that's often tin plate or another cheap material. So no copper, no, say, valuable materials. And it makes that also, like I told in another video, that such a radio can dysfunction within, say, 5 years or so. This was quite good anyway. And then it is often thrown away because it doesn't function. But the chips, the whole electronic circuit is intact, is good. So these very simple and cheap things, cheap, not cheap regarding the board with all the chips, etc., but say the contact materials anyway, they could give many problems. So anyway, also the flimsy wiring, so I replaced the flimsy wiring to the loudspeaker with wiring with a higher quality, also to the battery box with a higher quality, and now it functions again. In fact, I had not to do so many things. It was all quite simple anyway. In these tiny radios we have, say, beautiful chips. This one, for instance, and there's also one on the other side. I cannot show it because I have to loosen the screws. Intelligent chips developed in the 1970s, early 1980s, and they have in this chip here a complete FM receiver, for instance. And here on the back side there's also a chip for the for the audio amplification. And here the speaker, of course, the original speaker was made from, say, plastic. It had a plastic cone. Well, I cannot find it. They are very, very common. They are very flat. And that cone was also more or less damaged anyway. Such a beautiful radio, by the way, can easily be repaired by looking at it. Use a magnifying glass here, for instance, here, to see defects on the print. That's also very easy to find because of the lead solder. There is a chance of more bad connections because the lead solder, at least in this case, perhaps nowadays in 2024 not, but anyway, in the past it doesn't flow so well. It doesn't flow properly in some cases over all the connections that have to be soldered, and that all happens, as far as I know, in a kind of soldering bath with lead solder. But anyway, solder with lead is in many cases much better, makes much better contacts, etc., etc. But it is kind of forbidden by the regulations of the European Union. They make so many regulations that perhaps now or in the future they have an enormous impact on our lives. Anyway, I live in the Netherlands, by the way, thus in the European Union. Well, this was more or less all to tell. Again, that beautiful radio, it is repaired now. I'm going to use it again. Perhaps I'm going to say use this old battery box with new electrodes, new contacts to this radio. But the speaker was also damaged, and I only have this speaker, and this speaker is not flat enough to be mounted inside this box. Anyway, thanks for watching. These are, say, electronics things, hobbyist things that you can easily do, and it's very good for our environment. When such a tiny radio, cheap radio, is not thrown away but used again and is given a new life. Thanks for watching.